Hello and welcome to In Talks With. I'm Danielle Radoichin. In this episode, I travelled to Bath to the Holburne Museum to speak there with the British artist Lubaina Himid ahead of her new show. Himid turned 70 this year. She was born in Zanzibar, but after her father tragically died of malaria when she was just a few months old, her British mother took her to live in the UK, where they settled in London. She eventually studied theatre design at Wimbledon College of Art and then went on to the Royal College of Art. Over the course of her career, Himid has aimed to make art that creates a dialogue with her audience. She has said how the patterns in her work are a form of narrative. She's also made a point of championing underrepresented artists, especially Black and Asian women. She became a key figure in the 1980s London Black Art movement, in which so-called black art moved from the margins to the centre of British culture, thanks in part to a series of influential exhibitions Himid curated. She was the first black woman to win the Turner Prize, which she was awarded in 2017, and she was elected to the Royal Academy in 2018, the same year she was made a CBE for services to art. Today she lives and works in Preston, where she is a professor at the University of Central Lancashire. Himid sat down with me at the Holburne in the midst of the press preview of her new exhibition, in one of the main, very large rooms there, to tell me a bit about her work. Lubaina, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much. We are here at the Holburne Museum in Bath, the contents of which I believe were largely funded by slave plantations in the 19th century. I've spent the past hour enjoying your exhibition, Lost Threads, which opens here tomorrow and which runs until the 21st of April. Features 400 metres of fabric, Dutch wax fabric, which is involved in the space in a very specific way. I wondered if you could start by explaining what the theme is and why you wanted to call the exhibition Lost Threads.
Well, interestingly, the piece was commissioned originally by the British Textile Biennial up in the northeast of Lancashire. And they wanted me to make a piece that addressed collections, what was missing from collections, and the kind of importance of cotton to that part of the world, to the industries up there. And so there, it was in a big barn that was attached to a textile collection. So here at Holburne, what I'm trying to do is use it in a completely different way and talk again about the collection, talk about what's missing, what stories are missing. You can walk around and there are some fabulous paintings, beautiful ceramics, silverware. It's a gorgeous collection in a building that was designed as a hotel, but then turned into somewhere to keep this collection. And I suppose my work in this context is to kind of thread through the history, filling in the gaps, looking sort of as if it belongs, but it kind of doesn't belong. So it's wrapped around the pillars are intact, it's not harming them, it's the whole length of the ballroom and then in piles. And then in the portrait gallery on the top floor, the kind of colours from the fabric are sort of almost reflecting up to the gold frames and the sort of rather magnificent portraits of not so magnificent people up there. So it's kind of trying to leave a trace, I suppose. So you'll be here for a few months, then it'll go. But hopefully if you saw it here and you come again, you kind of will remember it being here in a kind of vague memory sort of way. How it picked up the colours of what was in the collection, but wasn't in a case,
What do you think that using textiles, fabric in particular, what sort of vibe, for want of a better word, does that bring, do you think?
Well, I think it's like when I paint on ceramics, sometimes I like to use materials that everyone knows what they are. So it's not it's not a mystery. People know what fabric is. It doesn't matter what walk of life they're from or how old they are. They know what fabric is. So it brings an audience closer to the work, of both physically and kind of emotionally, and they bring with them everything they know about fabric, everything they know about clothes they've worn, clothes they've seen, people in their family who make things. So you're already having a conversation with an audience if you're using everyday things. And then then an audience member might be more curious about what's actually happening, and then a conversation starts up because they bring their lives to the place.
So it's making it very accessible.
Yeah.
I think you said in the past something about everyone knows what a tablecloth is.
Yes, so everyone knows what a plate is.
Yeah.
I mean, and they do. It doesn't, you can be 7 and you know what material it is.
I suppose it's like a bridge in that way, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
creating a bridge between the viewer and what's already here.
Yes. But it is a bridge, but it's also, I do have great respect for audiences. I just think that people who come to museums or galleries, they're curious. They want to know more. If they didn't want to know more, they'd just sit in front of daytime TV. They come out because they want to find stuff out. So the least you can do is respect that and sort of make work that's trying to have a conversation rather than just telling them stuff and they're just consuming. You have to. Audiences are telling the work things as well, and they're telling the artist things as well.
What about the patterns on the fabric? Because that's obviously creating some kind of dialogue. I know in the past you've spoken about how your work, the pattern in your work creates some sort of dialogue, or it's like a narrative or some kind of interaction with the audience like that. Can you talk a bit about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I bought all these fabrics in shops in London. So I just went in and out of shops all along Commercial Street, choosing it as if I was making thousands of, hundreds of dresses. And I was literally choosing ones that took my eye, that had a fabulous sort of pattern. There's one in front of us now that's got fans, not elegant sort of Japanese-looking fans, but, electric fans. And another pattern that some people think is sharks and other people think is corn, So there's a lot about pattern that is figurative. Because a lot of patterns come from natural objects, leaves and flowers, the waves or how light falls on things. But there are also patterns involved here of actual objects, aeroplanes, electric fans. So I really chose things I really liked. And not that I would wear them, because I'm not really a person for wearing either dresses or things with patterns on them, even though my mother was a textile designer. But I love to paint patterns and people in kind of extraordinary clothes, sort of hybrid clothes, if you like, something from this century, something from that. And then I put them all together. Somebody else did all the sewing, so that it was going to fall apart. If I'd done it, it would have fallen apart. But yeah, so it was a kind of, in a way I was painting with the cloth, thinking, this will work with this will work with this, or I've used this in this 100-metre stretch, so I'm going to use it again, but differently, or juxtapose the green sort of pattern of corn and have it near out there. You've got a kind of red and pale cream version of the same thing. So you're kind of looking inside, outside, seeing the connections and seeing the conversations between one cloth here in the ballroom stretched out and another cloth, another 100-metre stretch wrapped around the pillars.
Have you thought about what might happen to the fabric after the exhibition ends?
Well, we keep it on rolls, and so we'll just roll it up. But what I'd like to do now, because of having it in this barn in North England and then here in a very different sort of place, really, I'm hoping somebody else might want it. and then I'll try and install it in a completely different way again. I don't want to repeat it. I just want to be, for the place to suggest how it should be done.
That's a nice thing about fabric, is that you can repurpose it in that way. That's really cool. You mentioned your mother, and I'd read she was a textile designer, and I actually hadn't even made that connection when I came here, but it must be such a nice is it a nice way of thinking about her in some way?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, she was a sort of woman who was thinking about pattern and looking at clothes and colour all the time. We'd be out and she would know when someone had bought their dress. She'd say, she's had that dress 2 years. And she'd know because the colourway wasn't something from this year, it was something from 2 years ago, It was really great, and she was never kind of telling you something like a kind of teacher. She was just chatting and, being a bit rude sometimes.
I wanted just to ask you about, you were a sort of a question outside of this exhibition, although obviously indirectly it's very connected to it, but you were such a key figure on the 1980s London black art scene, and also part of a remarkable group of black and Asian women artists that came up in the 80s as well, Sonia Boyce, Veronica Ryan, Sataka Biswas, and so on. Just interested to get your take on, with regards to what's happened since the pandemic and the Black Lives Matter movement and even Me Too and so on. Do you feel like there is still that camaraderie, brother/sistership group mentality that there was then, or do you think it's something different?
Well, in a way, we were all in that together. We did the whole thing in completely different ways from each other, so Eddie Chambers, Keith Piper, Donald Rodney, Claudette and Marlene Smith did it in one way in the Midlands, in Wolverhampton and Birmingham, Nottingham as well. And I was trying to do something different with just women artists in London, but also absolutely was talking to Claudette and Marlene, as well as Ingrid and Mortaja and Veronica Ryan, and Shutapa, of course. So the best thing about it is that we were learning as we went. We knew each other were doing these things in slightly different ways, but somehow saw that as an advantage. That if you're doing it that way and I'm doing it this way and we're speaking to each other, then one of these methods has got to work. And I think the thing is, since we've become, but now we're of course some people are, all of us probably in our 60s now, and some of us beginning to be, in our 70s, we have had a degree of success. And I think we really feel that every time someone has some success, they have it for all of us. When Sonia Boyce won the Golden Lion, of course we'd all like to have the pavilion, the British Pavilion at Venice, but when she was in that space and she made that piece, you're in there and, those old conversations sort of happened again. And when she won the Golden Lion, it was like she won it for all of us. And, with Claudette Johnson at the Courtauld, she and I really have never stopped speaking and being in contact with each other, Ingrid Pollard as well. But, I think all of us feel we collectively, even though we now don't work collectively in quite that same way, I think I'm pretty right in saying that we feel that one or other of us, Veronica winning the Turner Prize or me winning it, just helps the whole thing, and hopefully is making some spaces for people who are like 25, 30 coming up. We were always about that. We were always about trying to make space for other people. So we made the space for each other, and I think there's a pretty genuine desire to still do that. So it is kind of working collectively, but not in that pre-Raphaelite brotherhood sort of way. Yeah. We don't have meetings and and work things out in that way.
And as someone who has been working since the 80s, I believe you turned 70 this year.
Yeah, coming up. No, it's a fact. Yes, in a few months' time.
Do you feel like there has been a change, positive change?
Well, I think so. I think all those things I just mentioned are positive. There's more visibility, more people. I mean, a lot of audiences, a lot of black audiences did know our work, and a lot of art historians, feminist art historians mostly, were writing about it. But I think now it's what we're doing, what we're saying, the histories we're uncovering, or just the art we're making is more visible to more people. Sometimes there are contentious sort of debates about it, but it's out there now, so it is different. It's not different enough soon enough, but it would be mad to say it wasn't different. It is.
Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, really it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. You've been listening to In Talks with me, Danielle Radoician. The sound and theme music is by Woogie Productions, and the artwork is by Patrick Waugh. If you enjoyed this episode, please pass it on to someone who you think might also like it. Please subscribe and leave a review. To pitch for guest ideas, you can DM me via my socials at Danielle Radoician. Thanks for listening.